welcome to Steve McDonald's Crafting, and today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be having a go at doing a bit of abstract art. I've got my acrylic paints, and of course I'm going to be using the Arteza 14. I'm not affiliated with Arteza in any way, by the way. They probably don't even know I exist. But I love their paints, I love all their stuff. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do something abstract, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. Before I put my painting on, try and make something 3D using some PVA glue and some plaster of Paris, and flop it all over and then let it dry and then give it some abstract colours and paint over the top. It's going to be quite bright. I want this to be quite bright because the room is quite boring. So without too much further ado, let's get on. I've not done this before, so it's going to be interesting to see whether it works. I'm going to mix up a solution of some PVA glue and some water. Now, I'm not going to need a great deal, so I'm probably going to use about a 70-30 mix of PVA to water, just to get it a little bit more runny and give that a good old stir in. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and ring the little bell, give that bell a ring, and then you'll get notifications as well. So I'm going to mix that in so it's nice and thin and without any lumps. And then what I'm going to do is, once this is all nicely mixed up, I'm going to pop my plaster of Paris in until it gets to a really quite a nice thickish consistency. You'll see what I mean, because I want it to be holding up nicely in there and not just go into a ball of flat nothing. I will link everything that I've used today in the description below, so don't worry about that. I'm going to pop my plaster of Paris in and kind of do it by eye until it gets to the consistency that I want, until it's holding its own. Ah, yeah, that's better. That is exactly what I was looking for. I think that is definitely holding its own now. Look. Oh yeah, that's a lovely consistency. And I want to make this quite Jackson Pollocky. Not quite as Pollock as that. So I've just applied that using my popsicle stick. I think that is quite nicely textured. And what I'm going to do is put that to one side. I've got quite a bit left over and I don't want to waste it, so I'm going to go and get another canvas and do the same on that. And this is just a cheap old canvas board. I love using canvas boards because they're not expensive. If you mess them up, it doesn't matter. You can always just paint over them. We can't if you've done this to them. But you can always just reuse them again, and if you do mess it up completely, you've not lost a great deal. Right, that's going to kind of do me for that one. I'll leave these to dry, and then we'll come back to them. Well, this is all dry now, and it's ready for me to do whatever I'm going to do with it. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put a red colour wash over the top of this to get rid of the majority of this white. Now, I might use some white again in a little while, but I am going to get rid of that white, and it's easy to make up a colour wash, I think. So all I'm going to do is pop some scarlet red into this pot, just a little bit, add water, and then let's see how that goes. I have got a plastic sheet on here. It's just one of those cheap plastic tablecloths, because then I can just wipe it down and get rid of any mess that I've got at the end. Because look, I obviously do like to make a mess, because I just splash that everywhere. Pop this in, and what that'll do is that'll help me remove any loose bits that are there of that plaster, I'm hoping, and just get into all the bits. So whenever I paint on this or whatever I do with it, it isn't going to show any bits of white through it that actually I don't want. I love just being creative and chucking stuff down now and again. It's really quite pleasant. Well, that's all nice and dry now, and I quite like the pattern that's coming out. And what I'm going to be doing is I've chosen some colours, and there's quite a lot of colours. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to randomly pop them on here. And as I said, I want yellow to be quite a predominant colour in this. and some bright colours. So I'm also going to put a bit of red, and I know these colours will mix together and make a different colour, and you know, I'm okay with that. And if I need to pop on some more colours, then I'm okay with that too, because I have no idea what it's going to turn out. I just want something a bit bright and a bit textured, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to wipe through my colours like that. And now I'm going to add some more yellow on, because I want the yellow to be a bit more prominent. So this is really where it all went just totally wrong, and I keep playing with it and hoping that all of a sudden it's just going to turn into this beautiful piece of art that I'd be proud to put on my wall, but unfortunately it really doesn't. And I keep playing around and I keep using different techniques and moving it around with my brush, but you can't see any of the texture that's on there. I'm looking at it now doing this voiceover and thinking, what was I thinking? Maybe add a little bit more colour. That might help to bring it out. So I add a bit more blue in it, hoping that this is going to lift it and bring it out and make it look nice, and use a different technique with the palette knife. But it really doesn't make any difference. It just keeps going and turning into a more muddy, poop-like consistency. Now, if you'd like to buy me a coffee out of sympathy and say thank you for my videos and get your name on the next month's wall, then the link for that is in the description. I do promise you this does turn out better than what it's looking now, and I explain what I do to get it looking better. So again, add a bit more colour, move it around with my knife in the desperate hope that it's going to make it look nice. I think I add some white at some point and some other colours. But here we go, it does get better. And there we go. At the moment, that's not looking brilliant, but I think that's because it needs to dry. I think as well it needs to have not that frame around it, and I think as well it needs to have a little bit of white in it just to break it up. Well, I absolutely hated that after I'd seen it again for a couple of minutes. So what I did was I just sprayed it with water and washed it all off, because I really didn't like it. It did make a bit of a mess, but I don't care. I couldn't cope with that. It was horrible. But I really do quite like what it's left behind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry brush over this to see if I like that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bit of paint in my brush, and I'm going to start going over it with the colours that I really, really liked. So I've got my yellow there. I'm just putting some on the paper plates, rubbing it in my brush, and then just skipping over it. Going in a bit heavier where I think it needs a bit more. I'm really starting to like how this is turning out now. So, as a famous person once said, happy little accident. Now, I wanted predominantly yellow, so what I'm doing is I'm hoping this is going to work. So I'm putting predominantly yellow down first, and then I will go over with the yellow again in a little while. So I'm quite happy with the yellow. So now I want a bit of blue, and this is going to probably go a slightly different colour because of the blue and the yellow. But I don't mind that at the moment. Just go over it lightly so it picks up some of that blue. So now that's actually dry, I'm going to go over it with some of the iridescent paints from Arteza to see how they come out. Do a similar sort of thing. So I've got this nice iridescent blue. I'm going to go over it with the iridescent fiery red. And I'm going to let that dry. And then I'm going to go over it with the yellow. Well, I was convinced that it would look better, but I'm glad I did what I'm doing now. And I really love how these iridescent paints are making this look and dry brushing it over. And absolutely, I do really love the final picture. I'm very pleased with how it comes out. So again, I'm just using a very dry brush here with these iridescent paints, going over it and letting it catch on some of these details that I've made with the plaster of Paris. I'm starting to really like that now. I think once it's not on that background and it's on a nice background, I think it'll look okay. So I'm going to let this dry and then I'm going to do 2 more things to it. Penultimate thing that I'm going to do to it is do a little bit of white over it, just a tiny bit, to some more highlights. I'm going to make sure this is quite a dry brush, which it is. This is really starting to look, well, I think it's starting to look nice and very iridescent. It's going to be even more iridescent in a minute. Right, so that's picked up some of the lighter bits. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that dry and then I'm going to go over it very lightly with this dragonfly glaze that I've got, which is a green and gold red shift. And give it a bit of a sparkly sheen. I was thinking this is going to turn out horrible. Mind you, people might think it is horrible, but actually I really am, at the moment, loving this. So there we go. That one is now as much as I'm going to do with it. As you can see, it has got a bit of a shimmer on it, but when I put it on the wall and it's not against this awful background, it's a very plain background, I think you're going to see it much better. So I'm just going to put this to one side and then I'm going to do the other one. This one, as you can see, does look a little bit different because when I went to move it to do something with it, I dropped it and broke some bits of it. So what I did was I've just painted it with PVA glue and then I went over it and let it all dry and I've left all the crackly broken bits on. Let's see what that comes out like. What I'm going to do on this one is just a yellow colour wash. I'm doing it quite a runny colour wash. And that's just the normal Arteza, it's the lemon yellow. So I'm going to let that dry and then I'm going to go over it with some of the Dreamy Lemon Yellow iridescent paint. So now that's dry, I'm just going to dry brush a little bit of this red over it as well. Let that dry. And the next colour that I'm going to use is the iridescent Fairy Tale Blue, because that's going to start introducing some iridescent colour to it. Let that dry and then I'm going to go over with some iridescent yellow, a little bit of the iridescent pink and then some more of that gold shimmer. So now I'm going to put my iridescent yellow over the top of this to calm it right down. It's not easy as it looks, this abstract stuff, I can tell you. I've got a newfound respect for all the abstract artists out there because you make this beautiful work. So that's that one done, and then I'm going to just put the other coat on that. So the final coat now is going to be this gold green shift, and I am going to put it on there now heavier than I did on the last one. There we go, so that's that on there, and it has got quite a nice shimmer to it, but it's under my quite bright studio lights at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let those both dry now, and then I'll hang them up and we can see what they look like. Oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it would ever be. Well, this picture's all finished now and dry, and so is the other one. I like them so much that I thought I would put them in my own studio rather than in the house. I'll do a couple more for in the house to be able to brighten up my studio. I know this is the bright end of the studio as opposed to that end, which is not so bright. And there's the other one. I love how this comes out. I think it looks quite fiery. Let me know what you think of them in the comments. I really would like to know. I have to say, abstract art was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. But I do love the textures that have come out in this and in the other one as well. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that little bell. And if you'd like to buy me a coffee just to say thank you, or get your name on my coffee board for the following month, then the links are all in the description. Everything I've used today is in the description as well. Take care, enjoy your crafting, bye.